All right, so we're gonna take a quick tour of the instructor application. That'll also give us some frames of reference when we go into the sim designer as to what like buttons we are making available to ourselves. So we'll go ahead and click this. You don't need a license to run this. You can just say add a license later. I think the license are more for if you're actually running on the sim man. We'll do manual mode. We can do automatic mode later, but manual mode I think is the easiest to start with. It'll also look for themes here. And then we're going to just do cardiac arrest on this, but you can actually change them inside the application too. So we'll click on cardiac arrest, click OK. And it's also going to launch all these little other apps that are like debriefing and voice conference and stuff like that. These two options are actually nice. The best option I think you can go with is edit before starting, because that way it doesn't start your timer, and then you can make sure that like things are where you want them to be for your scenario. Like I said, you can change them within. You can change the themes within. I'll just go right to this right here, because it's an important part to look at is you can see all other parameters are set to normal, and that nothing's is like existing there to like confuse your learners. If we did like let's say a pneumothorax, this drop down button you can see right here, and then it can go to now it tells you okay, well, our right lung sound volume is 40%, so you would want to know that. So this is just kind of like your heads up display right there. But we'll go back to our cardiac arrest themes, and that gets us all our buttons. So I'm just going to do a quick like kind of clockwise rotation here. Oh, another first thing is you probably have your view messed up right now. It has like a poll over here is what it had when I first looked at it. The fix to that is just to go to view. You can go to load layout and then reset default layout. You click that. That should make your view look like what I'm looking at right here. One thing also is that you can mess around with the view, so all these things are actually manageable or customizable. You can say instead of load layout, you can say arrange windows. That hotkey is F3. And so then you can see we have all these undock features here. So I'm actually going to go to eyes because this is way too big for the number of buttons that it actually uses, and mostly you want to look at sounds anyways. So you can actually drag and drop, or you can click undock. So I'll just drag and drop, and you can see that I just took it off of there. Anytime you hover over here, you can say, does it want it on the top? Do you want it to be overlaid? Do you want it to the left? Do you want it to the right? All that. And whenever it squishes something, it will often like take buttons away. So just know that you do lose something whenever you do that. So see our one of our sliders is gone, but we can actually make that show back up as you can edit how much distance this is. So we're going to try to make eyes just smaller. We can make it even smaller. And then there you go, our Korotkov, I've been saying that wrong this whole time. Volume is now, so we got our slider back. We have all right, so that's just adjusting the view. And just know that you can do that with all this stuff. Like, so if there's any button that you keep going to, you're like, I really want to be able to see this. You can just hit F3 and you could say straight up just undock, or you can find another home for it. So we're going to put it right back in. I think we can even order. We can drag and drop and do the orders. So just quick, like how to customize all this. I think it's important to talk about. But back to the clockwise. The initial initial tab, and you can see that we have all these tabs. I try to arrange them, or I was taught to try to have most of your tabs under the same, or most of your options under the same tab, because kind of switching in this if you're doing a live scenario can be hard. So we'll hopefully just have one or two of these. All these is just kind of stamping. It's just like a checklist. So you can make a checklist for your scenario. Oh, sorry. Let's hit start. So now you can see the vitals and everything will become available. And then you can hit like tap and shout and call for help, and that way you can keep track, and you're seeing it show up in our session log down here. It's just one way to take notes. These blue buttons with the waves next to them should have actions on them. but I have not been able to see the actions actually automatically happen. So, and then some of this things we'll actually do is you can actually assign actions to this, so you can actually run a whole scenario through here, which I've done before too. But that's all this is this is just your counts. This is just note keeping basically, and you can also add actions to them. So we'll move on. The next is your theme. Like us, you've already seen me kind of changing them out. So since we're in the cardiac arrest, it's going to give us a couple options that would be that we might want to flip the person into. So like let's say if we have ventricular fibrillation and we want them to go into that, you could just hit activate. So you just hit activate, and then they're going to go into VFib. So you can look up here, and then there's our VFib. It has the patient's eyes closed, and their blood pressure is just non-existent now, and yeah, so we killed the patient. He will stay in that until we hit a recovery. You're going to notice most of the cardiac arrest scenarios need to have a recovery button, or I guess you could go back to healthy. But recovery is nicer because if you just hit healthy, if we activate, then now his eyes are open and now he has a blood pressure, which we don't see happen very often. So that might break the illusion. So your recovery buttons for that. But that's just it. This is nice and simple to mess with. You'll do most of the work setting these up, but there's not much work to do right now. Next, as you already see me interact with, is kind of your play pause. So you can pause the scenario if you want to say, all right, well, the IV catheters are over there, and don't want to eat up people's time or have anything happen. Like if you want to kind of pause the scenario, you have a pause button right there. There's also restart session. So if you're running multiple sessions, make sure to hit that so the whole everything resets back to the baseline that it was when you started. So we'll hit start again. Body sounds. So this is what you can. This is your options for making the heart sounds. So you can make them have some murmurs. This is your lung sounds. Like you can do wheezes and everything. So like let's say if we wanted them to wheeze, we could do that. It has this little chain link right here that you can actually unlink if you want them to them to be different. Just like you notice when I hit wheezing on one, it became wheezing in the other, and then we'll go ahead and link them again, and then there's your bell sounds. If you wanted to do like a pneumothorax or something, or actually have them be absent or very low, you'd actually click more sounds, and then you can get kind of that same drop down, but now you have the ability to say no sound. So you'd have to go through and do that on, if we wanted it to be like a left pneumothorax, we could do that. And then you can lower the volume down like 10% or something, have very faint breath sounds. So I don't mess with this much. This is apparently how loud stuff is. We're clicking. Come on, there we go. Yeah, I don't mess with that much. Here's some of your default sounds. If you want to actually talk with the click to speak through the simulator, if you actually want to say words and stuff like that, this is where you go. But if you want some default sounds, you can just hit one of these and then hit play. The moaning sounds is fun to scare people with. And then next is the eyes, much like kind of the same you're going to see. You have options. You can make them constricted. You can make them slow to react. This is how often they blink, and this is how they react to the swinging light test, which is pretty cool. This is our, you can see all the buttons here. We can, if you just hover over it, it's usually going to tell you what to do. This is a foreign body airway obstruction. Of course, it tells you right there, so you don't even have to guess. And you can click all this stuff and make things happen so that we give them attention. And then you can just click it again and it undoes it. So fun to play with. And then besides clicking, so now his lungs are the right size. Besides clicking individual buttons, you can go to the presets. So if you just wanted to say, all right, well, you can't intubate him, like they're going to have trouble intubating him, but they can ventilate, then it's going to make his tongue big, his neck rigid, and then give him pharyngeal obstruction. So it's going to make him really hard to intubate, and just inflates things on the SimMan. But you could actually set him up for a cryo if you wanted to say, all right, can't intubate and can't ventilate. So those are fun to use. And then this is resistance. So you saw when we can't intubate, it set the resistance all the way up to high. So even if you did somehow snake a tube in there, you wouldn't be able to push any air into his lungs because it would resist you. So these are resistances whenever they intubate. Yeah, so. And then this is our circulation. So we've kind of clipped off a little of that, making room for the eyes, but secretions don't really use, so it doesn't matter. And then this is our pulses. So if you wanted to run some kind of trauma case or some kind of obstruction, or venous obstruction or arterial obstruction, sorry, of course, arterial obstruction, you could actually decrease our pulses places, and then when they went and felt for those, they wouldn't feel them. And then next is one of my favorites is the CPR. You can see if they're doing CPR, and this is their depth, and this is how fast, or this kind of a metronome, how fast or slow they're going, and you can give them a coach, which I think is important when they're doing CPR, just because everyone kind of has a check-in. And then there's our CPR history that'll log you through that, and then ongoing care. I don't use that much. This is our monitor. You can actually click the buttons directly to make things change just right there. And you can see we have, so let's say we wanted him to go to like 130. And then we wanted to actually trend that over a time. So let's say we want it to happen in 20 seconds. And then you can have like asymptotic, or you can just have linear relationship. Let's say we want it to be that relationship. So we can say, okay. And this is all the rest of your stuff that's going to be seen on the learner's monitor. And you can also select less windows here whenever we make the scenario, but this one has a very broad one. Then we can go down here. You can actually see trends. We just saw our trend that we setting his heart rate to 130. But if you actually want to change his vital signs, one of my favorites is going to this cardiac tab, and then you have this running and waiting. So this allows you to, while he's like in a certain state, you can sit here and fiddle with, all right, well, we want to put him into, let's say, 3rd degree AV block, and we want to, so of course that's going to make his heart rate slower, but we can actually set his blood pressure to lower too. So you can set BP, and then let's make it so that they'd be worried about him. Let's just make him kind of obviously unstable. So, and you can set that, and you can say okay, and then now this is in our waiting block, and you can actually reverse them by hitting recycle. So one thing, like we did the 20 seconds up here, since we did 0 as a trend on this one, whenever we hit this, it's going to just instantly happen. So whenever we hit that, so now he's in 3rd degree block just instantly, and then his heart rate just dropped and his blood pressure dropped. So, and if you go down to the prediction, you can see how the straight lines just immediately happen. So just be aware when you do that stuff. That's it can help if you want things to instantly happen, but when things change abruptly, it kind of snaps people out of the illusion. And then you can do comments here. You can also do comments down here. And then you can make things appear. So if they hook up their SpO2, you can hit this, and now they get a credit for attaching the pulse oximeter, and on their monitor should actually show them the pulse ox. So if anything doesn't automatically pick up, you can manually push things like that to them. And then, so that's about it for that. And then next is just be session log, which is using, and these others are just kind of technical tabs, which if can help you with troubleshooting, but you just leave it on the session log because that's going to contain the information that you have. Hopefully that's just a quick tour. We're going to look at more in depth of some of these things, how to edit them, but at least now we know, what windows we have available, and when we're making buttons, we know what they're going to show up as. So thanks for watching.